Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear laps. Today we are taking a look at some more retro sports cars. We begin with the 1980 Porsche 924 Carrera GTS, 245 horsepower, 247 foot-pound torque, 2,469 pounds of weight. This is the lightest car we have here today by quite some margin, an incredibly light car in fact. The 924 essentially conceived as the everyman's Porsche, designed to be the entry-level sports car for the brand. It kind of borrows elements of the 911 with the sportiness factor, while borrowing the 928 sort of front-engined rear-wheel drive layout. Of course, historically using Volkswagen 4-cylinder engines, not particularly seen as a premium car back in the day, but it sold well enough and these cars have got a little bit of a following today. The 924 Carrera GTS is a homologation special, I believe, for some form of racing. And the interesting fact about this car is it features a turbocharger on that 4-cylinder engine. And as a result, that means this is actually more powerful than the 944 turbo we already had in the game, and it's a lot lighter as well, and all that means that it's a better driving car in general. I've never been much a fan of the way the 944 turbo drives, especially in Forza 6 it was a really awful car. In this game it's a little bit better, but the 924 for my money is a much better car. It's lighter, it's quicker, it just looks better as well, in my opinion. You know, it's more interesting, there's a lot more going on. It's definitely the one I would recommend out of the two, but, you know, it doesn't take a genius to really figure out that it is better than the 944. Next up, we have something that's a lot more my speed, the 1983 Volvo 242 Turbo Evolution, 225 horsepower, 250 foot-pound torque, 3,175 pounds of weight. Quite a bit heavier than the Porsche, but then again, the 242 is just a giant Volvo brick. Well, I say giant, it's actually a relatively small car, especially considering the other cars Volvo was producing at the time. The 242 Turbo Evolution, I believe this is a product of rallying. The Volvo 242, can't remember if it actually did particularly well in rallying or not. I'd imagine not, because it is rear-wheel drive, but either way, they made this as a homologation model with a bigger turbocharger on the 2.3 litre engine I believe these had. Yeah, pretty cool car. I do like the 242. I think, you know, it's classic styling, it's classic Volvo. People love these things now, and I've always quite liked them, so. I maybe don't quite love it so much as I love, say, the 850R, V70R, the giant fast Volvo wagons of the 90s, but it's still a really cool car. As far as it goes to drive though, it's not particularly great. It's a car I could not get quite comfortable with. It feels very odd, it's soft. It kind of oversteers, it understeers a bit as well, you can definitely feel the weight in it. It's a very hard car to really feel in tune with. It sort of feels like it's doing its own thing. I'd imagine with upgrades, you know, stiffer suspension and so on, this would be a pretty good handling car, especially if you strip some of the weight out, but from the box, yeah, just a little bit odd, I'm afraid. Next up, we have the 1985 Mazda RX7 GS LSE, 135 horsepower, 133 foot-pound torque, 2,575 pounds of weight. This is the least powerful and least torquey car we have here today by quite some margin. This is one of the very last of the first generations of Mazda RX7, the FB generation I believe it was called. It might have some other name as well, but I'm just going to call it FB because the one after this was called FC. Yeah, the RX7, really cool car, do quite like the Mazda RX7. I believe this took over from the RX3, which was another rotary sort of small car, although the RX7 was designed to be a little bit more focused, kind of, I guess, a little bit like the Cosmo, which was Mazda's first ever rotary sports car, I believe. It is also incredibly loud and makes a weird noise, and I love it for that. The rotary noises are often welcome, but in this particular car I think they are just more mental than ever and just sound so crazy. Anyways, as far as it goes to drive, it is a nice driving car, however it is predictably quite slow. Yeah, I mean, I drove Mazda MX-5s around here not too long ago, and in all honesty it feels not as quick as they did. You know, maybe the 1.6 it feels a little bit quicker then, but that 1.8 NA MX-5 is probably quicker than this is. Yeah, it's not a quick car, it's a great handling car. I'm sure if you put some upgrades in it again it would be a barnstormer, but out the box, not quite. Next up, we have the 1987 Nissan Skyline GTS-R, 206 horsepower, 181 foot-pound torque, 2,965 pounds of weight. This is, and I know a lot of people said this when this car first ever came to Forza, it's probably my favourite of the Skyline bunch. I do really like the R31. I like the R32, I like the R33, I like the R34. I just like the R31 more than those because I played Gran Turismo 2 as a kid, and this car was quite rare and quite funky looking with its sort of boxy styling. I love the rear end on these, I think they look great. I've seen a few of these in real life as well, and they're fantastic looking cars. The GTS-R is the sort of most famous of the R31 models. These fixed ridiculous prices. Skyline prices obviously went through the roof a few years back, and these ones are about 100 grand, I think, or something ridiculous. They are insanely expensive, but thankfully in Forza we don't have to worry about how much the car actually costs in real life. As far as it goes to drive, I loved it. It's a great handling car. You know, it's got a bit of 80s charm to it. It's a little bit soft, you know, maybe not quite as powerful as, again, you know, more modern Skylines or even the more modern Z cars, but it more than makes up with that for character and for fun in general. It is rear-wheel drive which is something worth noting, unlike most modern Skylines which we associate with four-wheel drive, so bear that in mind. But yeah, an excellent car. I've upgraded a few of them in my time and they've proved to be pretty loyal companions. Next up, we have the 1995 Volkswagen Corrado VR6, 178 horsepower, 177 foot-pound torque, 2,734 pounds of weight. The first front-wheel drive car here today, because of course sports cars are not just exclusive to rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. We can also have a front-wheel drive one, as we have here, and the Corrado is a very interesting story. There is multiple avenues you can go down with the Corrado. It was first pitched as a Porsche, and then Volkswagen got it, and it's a mismatch of Volkswagen parts. It's got the rear suspension from a Passat, I think, and the front end from a Mark II, and you know, the VR6 engine from the Mark III Golf. It's all sort of a mismatch, but apparently it worked really well, and these are excellent handling cars, and of course collector's values of these again are pretty high, nowhere near as good as the Skyline of course, or even, you know, it's about comparable to probably what the Volvo 242 Turbos are worth now. The VR6s are worth serious money when it comes to Corrados, and of course it was the lead hero car in Forza Horizon 1, the first car you went to the festival in. As far as it goes to drive, well, it's a VR6 engine Volkswagen from the 90s, which means it is incredibly front heavy. The differential on this is also iffy. I don't recall that being an issue on the Mark III Golf, which also has the VR6 engine in this game, but between those two I'd probably have the Mark III Golf. I prefer the Mark III Golf in general, which I know is probably sacrilege, but you know, if you want some retro style, the Corrado probably isn't too bad. Again, upgrade it. Next up, 1997 BMW M3, 321 horsepower, 258 foot-pound torque, 3,219 pounds of weight. This is the most powerful car here today by 1 horsepower. We'll get to that in a second. And yeah, it has been a long old while since we had a BMW M car around the track, I believe. And this is one of our first M3s, I think. Have we had enough? I think we've had the E30, we might have had the E92. I might be misremembering that though. Yeah, this is one of our very first M3s to go around the track, which is surprising considering the M3 is very ubiquitous. This of course being the E36 generation, probably my favourite of all of the BMW M3s. I don't like the E46 or the E92, or many of the modern ones, because I forget they exist. But yeah, no, the E36 is cool. This is a European model, which means it's not the North American one that was dogged by not being an M3. As far as it goes to drive, it is very fast, as you'd expect, especially coming out of cars like the Corrado and the RX7. This feels like a, you know, rocket ship. A little bit floaty on the suspension though. It definitely feels like it's from the 90s. Not quite as hardcore as a modern day BMW M car would be, but yeah, still a pretty good car, and of course, you know, these make excellent drifting platforms if that's something you desire. I kept the oversteer at bay, and yeah, pretty decent car overall. Next up, the 1997 Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, 320 horsepower, 315 foot-pound torque, 3,704 pounds of weight. This is the torquiest car here today. However, it is the heaviest by over 500 pounds. Yeah, this is a very heavy car, and that's kind of what the 3000 GT is known for, being the heaviest of the Japanese sports cars. That being said, out of, you know, you sort of think Japanese sports cars, Skyline, RX7, Supra, those sort of elites, this is my favourite of the bunch. I've always liked the 3000 GT, not this particular model. I'd much prefer the last gen model, which I've never understood why Forza's stuck with the second gen, but that's what we've got. Yeah, I love this car. It's the one I would own out of all of them, which is good because it's the cheapest, and I would actually probably spend money on one of these, give them the chance if I got a really clean one. But then again, they're going up in value a bit now. As far as it goes to drive, it is decent. However, it is understeery. You can feel the weight in this car quite badly. I mean, in all honesty, between all of the sort of Japanese 90s sports cars, the best one of the bunch is the RX-7 in terms of driving experience because it is rear-wheel drive. The Skyline's a bit understeery, the Supra's dog. But, yeah, no, the 3000 GT, you know, it's a good car, it's fine, you know, dump the weight out of it, I'm sure it would be a lot better, but out of the box, you know, I like understeer, so I gel with this car pretty darn well, and it's also the coolest of the bunch. And finally today, the 1998 Nissan Silvia K's Aero, 217 horsepower, 202 foot-pound torque, 2,789 pounds of weight. The Nissan Silvia, a car which I don't particularly like, I'll be honest. I get the appeal of the Silvia. It is a great platform. You can build a drift car, you can build a time attack car, you can do whatever you want with them. However, the Silvia to me is the most oatmeal sports car ever made. It just, the styling is so bland, it's unreal. The whole point of a sports car is it looks good and goes fast, and the Silvia, I don't know if it goes particularly quickly, you know, and it doesn't look particularly good. It just looks a bit like a Vauxhall in all honesty. Anyways, yeah, no, the Silvia, not a huge fan of it, to be perfectly honest with you, but then again, I'm not a massive Nissan person in general. As far as it goes to drive, it's alright. I mean, out the box, it's a fine car. It oversteers a bit like the BMW really, except this has a lot less power than the BMW, so it won't try to kill you quite as much. It's manageable. I would probably put my upgrades onto taming out some of that oversteer. That's the issue with the Silvia in general, though. I'm not an understeer person. I don't like understeer. I'd probably go with a 240SX over this. I had quite a bit of fun throwing that car around. This, I don't know, just seems to muddy the water for me a little bit personally. Anyways, on to the times themselves, and the quickest car today, unsurprisingly perhaps, is the BMW M3, going to 199th place with a 124.391, just beats out an R32 Skyline, Lotus Carlton, Maserati Levante, Ford Falcon XR8. Yeah, pretty darn good time, and it's not that far off of a E39 M5 either from the same time period. In 237th place, we find the Porsche 924 Carrera GTS with 125.922. Interestingly beats out a Porsche 911 Turbo of pretty much the same vintage, which I find fascinating. Yeah, in fairness, I can't really blame it. The 924 is a great handling car. In 259th place, we find the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4 with 127.029. I wish I could have got more out of that car. If it was just a few £100 lighter, it really could have rocketed up the leaderboard, but yeah. As far as it stands with the weight in it and the understeer, that's where it goes. In 291th place, we find the Nissan Silvia K's Aero, 128.521, goes slightly quicker than an Acura Integra Type R, so it's about where you'd expect it to fall in all honesty. Yeah, a decent enough car, I guess. There's plenty of alternatives, and I would probably rather have all of them. Moving down the board some more, in 358th place we find the Nissan Skyline GTS-R with a 130.944, just beats out a Prelude and a Mitsubishi Eclipse. And in 364th place, we find the Volvo 242 Turbo Evolution with a 131.140, beats out a Jaguar XJS V12, which is fair because the Jaguar XJS V12 is a complete dog to drive, and also the XJS is actually newer, surprisingly. Moving down the board some more, in 385th place we find the Volkswagen Corrado VR6 with a 132.820, slightly down on the equally named Colorado Chevrolet. It is quicker than the Mark III Golf GTI, so I guess it might be quicker in a straight line. I'd probably still take the Golf GTI in all honesty. And finally today, in 410th place, the Mazda RX7 GS LSE with a 135.126. It does beat out a Datsun 240Z and the Nissan 240SX, which in all honesty, they're pretty comparable in terms of their performance. Yeah, the RX-7, as I said, just not a very quick car at all. Also, it lost out to the MX-5 1.8, which you might have noticed. So, go Mazda, I guess. Anyways, Thank you all very much for watching this edition of Forza Top Gear Labs. I hope you've enjoyed. As always, stay tuned for the Rivals episode, which will be dealing with a great American battle next time, and then join us for the next main episode, where we'll be taking a look at more modern sports cars, wrapping up our new More Sports Cars trilogy. So join us for that. Until then, a farewell.
You know the sorrow that my heart holds in knowing just where my hopes and dreams are going.